Okay, good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us in our new special webinar series. We are partnering with our friends over at our MBDA Business Center and in collaboration with APS to bring you this new series of webinars. These are dedicated to um, helping you do business with the federal government. So this first session will be on Federal Contracting 101, and it'll be a brief overview of the federal government procurement system. So we have a very special guest and friend to the chamber, Sam Groves. She was formerly with MBDA Business Center, but now she's with one of our very good friends over at DAB Construction. Sam comes from a military background, so she'll be able to provide a little bit about herself in just a moment. But before then, if you have any questions, please make sure to include those in the chat. There is also a Q&A here available, so if you have any direct questions, please make sure you drop them in there. We'll be answering questions towards the end of the workshop. And then if you'd like to stick around towards the end, we have our business um, boot camp right now, but we also have our membership orientation, which will start right at 11. So if you love to learn more about the Chamber's initiatives and our programs, please make sure to stick around for that. But with that, I'd like to hand it over to Sam and have her get our presentation started. Thank you so much to our MBDA Business Center and our partners over at APS who are making this 8 series workshop available for you all. Thank you so much, Sam.
Yes, thank you and good morning to everyone. I want to thank the MBDA Phoenix Center and the Arizona Hispanic Chamber of Commerce for inviting me to participate in this series of workshops with you all. Just to tell you a little bit about myself for someone who may not have met me already, because I've been around a long time. My name is Gabriel Groves, but my nickname is Sam, because I didn't like being called Gabe or Gabby when I was a kid, so everybody just called me Sam. But I am a retired federal government employee. For 35 years, I was in the contracting career field with the federal government. And the last 14 years of my career was spent at Luke Air Force Base as the chief of the infrastructure flight. My flight was, we're the ones that did the construction contracts, negotiated them, awarded the contracts, and monitored the contracts. So based on my past experience, I'm going to be giving you a little bit of information today about how the federal government procurement system works. This is just going to be very basic information, top level. For those of you who already have federal government experience, this may be old hat to you, so hopefully it won't be too boring for you, okay? So anyway, as Elizabeth said, this is about Federal Contracting 101, and it's just a brief overview of the federal government procurement system. What we're going to be covering today, with the next slide, please. Yes, we're going to be covering what the federal government purchases, how the federal government does its purchasing, and how to get the government to purchase from you. And as I mentioned, it's going to be very top level, very basic information. Next slide, please. Okay, the federal government is one of the largest consumers of goods and services in the United States. And when we talk about the federal government, we're not talking about just the military branches. There's all of the various departments within the federal government. And just like any other corporate entity, those agencies purchase the same types of goods and services from both private and public sector. For new contractors, especially when it comes to military installations, think of those installations as small cities. And it has all of the same requirements for goods and services as any other city does. Okay, we need commodities, we need housing, we need utilities, construction, all of those things are the same things that the government needs that any other entity would need. Okay, next slide, please. Now, what we refer to as the government marketplace, that includes state and municipal. We can call it the entire government, and spends billions of dollars each year. The federal government spends approximately $500 billion each year. That's just a rough estimate. Could be even more than that. And federal agencies, we have a goal of doing at least 23% of our work going to small businesses. We're mandated to support the small business program. Now, contracting with the federal government is not quite the same as when you're contracting with state or local governments. The federal procurement system is fairly uniform. It's standardized. We have rules and regulations. For those of you who've done work with the governments before, you know that there's a lot of rules and regulations that have to be followed and complied with. Selling to the federal agencies, the various agencies, it's similar, but not identical, okay? And as I put on my little slide here, uniform and similar does not necessarily equal simple, easy, or fast. And unfortunately, a lot of firms that try to get into the federal government sector, they are left at the starting gate. And a lot of it's because they just don't have the information that they need to become successful. Okay, next slide, please. Some of the benefits of doing business with the federal government in particular, because the federal government contracting officers were mandated to support the small business program, there are a lot of set-asides and small business goals that the agencies are required to follow. The Small Business Administration, which is a federal agency that was created specifically to advocate for and to nurture small businesses. They are the folks that create and enforce the policies and procedures for the small business program the rest of the federal agencies are required to comply with. Also, we have subcontracting goals at the federal level. And one of the great things that I hear from a lot of contractors, they like working for the federal government, is because their payment is timely. They're guaranteed to get paid, and it's going to be timely because the federal government, one of the things that the federal government has to do is pay on time. If they don't meet the strict time frames for getting those payments into the contractor's hands, the government gets assessed interest rates, and we don't want to do that, having to pay interest. In times that are good and times that are bad, there's always a pretty consistent stream of revenue that a lot of contractors can count on. And in fact, during times of hardship, back in 2008 and even now, a lot of contractors are turning to the federal government for work because there's more consistency, there's just more work available, and they just need something that is a little bit more stable for them that they can count on. Working for the federal government allows you to diversify your business portfolio. We always tell contractors to have part of their business maintained in the commercial sector. Don't put all your eggs in one basket, but also diversify and going into the federal sector if it feels right for that particular business. And because of rules and regulations that the federal government is required to follow, contracting officers have to be fair and transparent in the procedures and the processes that they do when it comes to source selections, selecting contractors for contracts, all of that. And one of the great things that the federal government does, provides many, many resources out there to help you, the contractor, gain a foothold into the federal sector, get your business infrastructure set up so that you can become successful. And there's a lot of training and education and guidance available to you because you are a small business. Next slide, please. again, for those contractors who have had some experience working with the federal government, there are a lot of challenges too. Time and money. It can be expensive. It can be time consuming, labor intensive, trying to get your foot into the door and gain those first federal contracts. There's a long business development cycle, 18 to 24 months, where you're trying to, make contacts, building relationships, getting to know folks, doing your research, finding out what opportunities are coming up, and trying to get yourself positioned so that you can start competing for those contracts out there. A lot of compliance requirements. As I mentioned before, there's a lot of rules and regulations that are in place when it comes to working with the federal government, probably even more than what you will encounter working with state or municipal governments. And sometimes that can be daunting to new contractors. I've known contractors who decided they don't want to go federal because they don't want to have to deal with all the additional rules and regulations. And if you're working on a military installation, there's all the additional security requirements that you have to deal with. So sometimes contractors will decide that's not for them. It's not for everybody. Connecting with the right people, meeting the right people. Sometimes the federal government can seem very impersonal. It's a huge entity, and trying to get your foot in the door, meet the people who can be of value to you, that can help you get those contracts that you need. It can be a little daunting sometimes. And positioning yourself to win, it can be a little bit daunting. But basically, for any new contractor out there, if you want to get into the federal sector, you have to be able to compete. You have to create a best value offer in your proposals and position yourself to win. Plan and strategize how you're going to win, okay? And there are agencies out there that were created by the federal government to help you do that, okay? Next slide, please. Some of the things that you may want to do. Learn the language. For those who have, again, dealt with the federal government, dealing with the military, there's terminology that the federal government uses that's not necessarily the same as what you hear in the commercial world. And among federal agencies, the terminology can differ. Acronyms, especially the military, you'll know there's a lot of acronyms that are used, and they will, again, differ from agency to agency. But you need to get in there, learn the lingo, become familiar with that language, get comfortable with it, so that when you're communicating with the federal government, with your contracting officers and your small business specialists, and you're using that language, you're indicating that you understand how the federal government does business. You'll understand what the requirements are, and you'll be able to communicate that back. You'll be able to articulate that in your proposals and let the government know that you understand what the requirements are, and you can help the federal government resolve its needs and issues, and you'll be the kind of contractor that the federal government wants to do business with. You're understanding the language and being able to utilize that language and participate in communications and all that demonstrates that you're absolutely serious about going after business with the federal government. Next slide, please. Now, here's some very, very basic terms for new contractors. These I'm sure you've probably seen already. SAM, which is the System for Awards Management. It replaced the CCR registration website for contractors. DUNS, Dun and Bradstreet numbers, we'll talk about that a little bit. CAGE codes, we'll talk about that. And beta.sam.gov. The basic website where the federal government advertises all of its upcoming opportunities. Used to be known as FedBizOps. It's now beta.sam.gov. Okay. And we'll talk about NAICS codes, what those are. And of course, we will talk about the FAR. Okay. Next slide, please. Again, SAM is System for Awards Management. The government is dedicated to going paperless and trying to make everything as streamlined as easy as possible, not just for contractors, but also for federal employees, for the contracting folks. And they have consolidated almost everything that they do into a single database, System for Awards Management. Any contractor that wants to do business with the federal government must be registered in SAM. And when you go in there to register, you're going to be basically creating a profile for your company. You'll have your basic information and everything about the company, what your status is, certifications, all of that. And you want to make sure that you're updating that information on an annual basis. When you go into SAM, if you don't already have a CAGE code, you could obtain a CAGE code. The definition of CAGE code, for those of you who may not know, CAGE, it's the Commercial and Government Entity Code, CAGE code. And basically what it is it's a unique identifier that's assigned to any kind of business entity. And it's based on facilities or locations. For instance, there could be a business that has several locations. Each location will have its own CAGE code. And the CAGE code is assigned by the Department of Logistics, the Logistics Agency, DLA, okay, Defense Logistics Agency. When you go into SAM, you will see an application in there within SAM to apply for a CAGE code if you need to, if you don't already have one. And the request basically goes to the DLA. You're assigned your own unique CAGE code that you will use thereafter. And you also obtain what they call the DUNS number. That stands for Data Universal Numbering System. A DUNS number is also another unique identifier for your company or business entity. And you'll always use your DUNS number and your CAGE code thereafter to identify yourself as a unique business entity. Okay. Next slide, please. Okay, beta.sam.gov. Again, that's the website where all federal agencies advertise their requirements, not just the military, but all of the other agencies like the FBI, CIA, Department of the Interior, Department of Agriculture, all of the federal agencies go into beta.sam.gov. And when you're looking for opportunities, upcoming contracts, things like that, there's a way of searching for that so that you can pinpoint. Like if you're interested in a particular agency or military installation, like for instance, Luke Air Force Base, you can search by that location or by a NAICS code or by the acquisition designation, which is the solicitation. Solicitation being the way that the government solicits contracts or sources to fulfill their needs. Okay. In a future workshop, I believe we're going to be talking more about the various different government solicitations and how to interpret those solicitations when you're putting your proposal together. Okay. But as I mentioned, opportunities can be found in specific phases of the federal government's acquisition cycle. In a nutshell, the acquisition cycle that contracting goes through, we do what we call a sources sought that goes out to the public. And it's part of the federal government's way of doing market research to see what sources are out there that are available and interested in competing for any requirements that are going to be published. If you see a source is sought out there and it involves work that your company does, you feel that you're qualified and you're interested in possibly competing in the acquisition that'll be going out later, respond to those sources sought. The federal government needs responses to let them know that you are out there, that you're qualified, and that you're interested in competing for their acquisition. Like I said, it's part of the research that contracting does in order to decide how they're going to strategize their acquisition. How are they going to do it? Is it going to be a small business set aside because there's plenty of small businesses that can compete for it? Or does it need to go a particular category of small business, like maybe a woman-owned small business or 8A, all of that? Or if there's not enough adequate competition indicated in the small business sector, that's when contracting can justify going full and open, unrestricted, which means any business of any size can compete for that. Pre-solicitation notices, that's a notice that goes out just prior to the solicitation itself being published. It's like a heads up to the industry, letting everybody know that a solicitation is on its way out. Solicitations is the actual request for proposal or request for quotes that the government puts out there. And that's what you're going to be responding to when you see that go out. You're going to be responding with a proposal or a bid, okay? Amendments, those are amendments or changes to the solicitation. And of course, we always announce contract awards too. So when you're out there looking in beta.sam.gov, you can find all of that information. You may want to look at contract awards just to educate yourself about what contracts have been awarded that may be in your industry, that, you know, what the time periods are for those. Like if it's a 5-year contract, you'll want to make note of it. Your business development folks may want to track that so that the next time it's competed out there, you can keep track and be ready to compete for the next new award. All of that would be part of your business development planning and strategizing about what contracts you want to go after, what you want to track, what you want to keep you know, aware of. And it educates you how the government does its procurement activities. And tip for new contractors, tip for any contractor, you want to find out about those opportunities as early as possible, even before the source of sought is posted. Experienced contractors will attend conferences, trade shows, industry days, communicate with the government and find out what's forecasted coming down the line. So they're already prepared to respond even before the source of sought goes out on the street. Okay. Next slide, please. NAICS codes. I think everybody's heard about NAICS codes by now, but it's the North American Industrial Classification System of Codes that's been set up by the Small Business Administration. Each industry has been assigned a NAICS code, okay? And as a business, you want to understand what industrial classification sector and subsector your business fits into. What is your NAICS codes? And each NAICS code has criteria for determining size standards, like whether it's based on gross revenues or number of employees, all of that. You want to be aware of that when it applies to your company. And a company can qualify for more than one NAICS code. For instance, you may be a specialty trade in construction. You may do electrical, you may do HVAC, or you may specialize in doing roofing or whatever, but your company may also have other capabilities. You want to make sure that your SAM registration that you're going to be updating on an annual basis, make sure that you have all of the NAICS codes in there for which your firm qualifies. So that when the government's out there doing its market research, one of the places that the government goes into, they go into SAM, and they also go into other search engines, and they will do searches by NAICS codes for future acquisitions. That also helps them determine who is out there, who is qualified, who may be available to compete for their acquisition. You want to make sure that you got all of your NAICS codes updated on your SAM registration so that you could be up for consideration and come up on that list too. Okay. So next slide, please. And this is just a little snapshot, an example of what the NAICS code sector and subsector looks like. And because my background is primarily in construction, I love construction, we use construction as the example here. So it's sector 23. construction, and then we have a various numerous subsectors of construction, and it goes up to 6 digits. So what you want to do in your SAM registration, and also on your marketing for your company, you want to market and indicate what NAICS codes that you qualify for. You want to use the 6-digit NAICS code. For instance, 236220. That's the most common one that you're going to see for construction contracts, general contractors doing ground up building, design build, design bid build, renovations, repairs, things like that. Most of the construction contracts will be released under 236220 and 237, which is related to that for heavy and civil engineering, building bridges and highways, paving contracts, things like that. It's a little bit more pinpoint, a little bit more specialized going under subsector 237. And again, it's broken out 6 digits. The various civil type of work that a company may specialize in, like water and sewer lines, highway, street and bridge. There are others, obviously. But the basic point of this is you want to make sure that you understand what sector and subsector of NAICS code that your company qualifies for. Make sure you capture that in your registration and in your marketing, your brochures and in your capability statements and everything else talking about your company. Let everybody know what the NAICS codes are that you are qualified for. And one thing that I might want to advise too, as an ex-contracting officer, I want to let you all know too, that there's such a thing as having too many NAICS codes on your registration. And for those companies that have every NAICS code in the world out there, that just lets the government know that you basically are a jack of all trades. So don't go overboard with all the NAICS codes. Put in the ones that are your primary NAICS codes and some other little things that you may specialize in, but don't overdo it either, because that indicates to the government that you want to say that you can do anything that the government has out there. And then that's when the government starts worrying about whether or not you were truly competent and you're really truly qualified. You just want to be considered for everything, but can you really do the work to the standards that are expected? Okay, so don't overdo your NAICS codes. Next slide, please. Okay, federal acquisition regulation. This is what with contracting people we all call the Bible for contracting. And all federal agencies use the FAR. You as a contractor, especially if you're new to the federal government sector, you can access the FAR digitally online. Get in there and familiarize yourself with the FAR. Okay, take a look at it. Take a look at the various parts of the FAR. The chapters are referred to as parts, okay? Like FAR Part 19 talks about the small business program. FAR Part 36 is for construction. FAR Part 14 deals with the processes and procedures for sealed bidding. FAR Part 15 is when you have negotiations, contracts, RFPs, things like that. So get in there, take a look at the FAR, look at all the various parts. It tells you about what the processes and procedures are that the federal government follows when it does its acquisitions. Talks about the responsibilities and the accountabilities of the various players in the federal sector, but it also tells you, the contractor, what your responsibilities are also. Too often, contractors, especially in construction, they will pay attention to, like, maybe the statement of work, or on a service contract, they may pay attention to the performance work statement that outlines the actual work that the contract requires. But too often, contractors will forget about the clauses and the other requirements, terms and conditions of the contract. They don't pay attention to those other elements within their contract. The contract itself needs to be looked at as a living document because it can change, it grows, evolves. But you look, what we refer to as the four corners of the contract. You are responsible as a contractor who's been awarded a contract. You are responsible for everything within the four corners of that contract. So look at all of your clauses, get yourself educated, go to the FAR, because the FAR, Part 52, has all the clauses listed and the definitions of the clauses and what the terms and conditions and the responsibilities are within each clause. Make sure that you get yourself educated about all of that, okay? And like I said, all federal agencies use the FAR for the basic guidelines, policies, procedures of how to do their acquisitions. And most agencies have their own little supplement to the FAR in addition. For example, DFARS, Defense FAR Supplement. That's what DOD uses, Department of Defense. In addition to the FAR, DOD has the DFAR. It's a supplement to the FAR. It does not supersede or negate the FAR, but it's used in conjunction with the FAR. And DFARS, for those contractors who've already been working with military agencies, military organizations, they will understand that the DFARS regulation sometimes it tweaks or tightens up the requirements that are in the FAR. Does not supersede or negate, but it can tighten up and constrict it even more. And when you're doing contracting with DOD, for example, you do have to be aware of DFARS as well as the FAR, okay? VA, they have their own supplement to the FAR, and other agencies, like I said, most other agencies do have a supplement as well. Okay, so you want to, for whomever you're going to be doing business with, like FAA, for instance, they also have a supplement to the FAR. You want to get yourself familiar with the FAR, but familiarize yourself with the supplement that the agency uses with whom you want to do business. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, how the business, or excuse me, how the government does this purchasing. Okay, one of the things that we always advise contractors, be in the know. Do your research. Just like, for instance, someone new is hoping to get a job with a company. Before that interview, they do the research, find out as much as they can about the company, what the company does, what its mission is, what its products and services are. Maybe try to read a little bit about the company's culture and you know, their values. You want to get yourself ready for that interview so that you can do well. Well, you're going to be doing the same thing when you get yourself ready to do business with the government. You want to do your research. You want to know the various programs, know the various strategies. As example, for construction, all the different types of contracts, acquisition strategies that the government may use in satisfying its requirements for construction. Design, standalone contracts, again, full and open. That's, you know, unrestricted. Everybody can compete for something. And then we have the various set asides for small business programs, 8A sole sources, which is one of those areas. If you look at the FAR, and if you go to FAR Part 6, you will see those instances where the government is allowed to actually award sole source contracts for various criteria, like if it's a national emergency, or if that contractor is literally the only one that can do a particular job, or if the acquisition fits in the 8A program, you could possibly award a sole source contract to an 8A contractor who is qualified. And the limitation on that is you can't go over $4.5 million, but anything under that, you could possibly award a sole source contract to that one contractor who doesn't have to compete. So familiarize yourself again with the FAR and find out all the rules and regulations. Small business 8A, they talk about all of that. Set asides, they talk about all that. FAR Part 19, okay? MAC, M-A-C-C, that's multiple award construction contracts. MATOC, multiple award task order contracts. These are different types of contracts that are referred to as indefinite quantity, indefinite delivery. Okay, they're usually 5 to 10-year contracts. Work is awarded against those contracts on individual task orders. Familiarize yourself with all those different types of terminology, okay? You get in the FAR. The FAR tells you about different types of contracts, the criteria that the government uses when determining what type of contract that they're going to be awarding. And it would also tell you what the standards are and how the government is supposed to use those contracts, what they're for, when they're used. And especially you want to get yourself familiar with the way that the government does its market research. As I mentioned, we look at SAM to see who is out there by NAICS code. Government also attends trade shows and conferences, industry days to meet contractors one-on-one. But they are required to go through a very elaborate market research process in order to substantiate and justify the acquisition strategy that is determined. DoD especially, all of the contract processes, activities are inspected, goes through a great deal of surveillance to ensure that the contracting folks are good watchdogs of the taxpayers' money. And that's why every activity has to be substantiated and documented, and it has to be justified. And as I mentioned before, the mandate is to go to small business as much as possible, and you have to substantiate any reason why you would not be awarding a contract to a small business. You have to justify those actions. Next slide, please. How the government purchases. Slide number 2 here. One of the things that you want to educate yourself on are who are the key players on the government side that you want to get to know because you are entering the federal sector. You want to position yourself to get ready to start competing. You want to build relationships. You want to know, you want to find out what's going on so that you can find out what opportunities are coming down the pike or being forecasted and all that. These are some of the key players that you want to familiarize yourselves with. Contracting specialists and contracting officers. Those are the folks who are tasked with actually putting out the acquisitions, finding the sources, and awarding the contracts. And then afterwards, post-award, they are the folks who monitor and administer the contracts. They are the keepers of the contracts. Your small business specialist. Every federal agency will have a small business specialist. That's small business specialists. They are the first person that you want to make contact with. They are the keepers of the gate, so to speak. They are the folks that you make contact with, let them know about your company, let them know that you're out there, and then they in turn will open the door and introduce you to contracting officers and contracting personnel. Small business specialists, their job is to go out there and find small businesses that are capable and interested in doing business with the federal government. It's their job to make sure that the contracting folks comply with and adhere to policies and procedures regarding the small business program. Small business specialists have input to the actual acquisition process. The Small Business Administration, SBA, they are the agency that was created by Congress. They exist to assist and nurture, guide, and help build small businesses. And luckily here in Arizona, in the Phoenix area, you have one of the most wonderful small business administration offices there are, because in my career, I had to deal with small business specialists from various areas, various states, and not all of them were nearly as cooperative or as compassionate or as dedicated as the Small Business Administration Office here in Phoenix. Shivani Dubey is the Deputy Director of the Phoenix SBA office. She and her team of counselors and of specialists there, they are some of the most dedicated people. They truly care about their clients, and it was always a delight to work with them when I was still at Luke Air Force Base. The SBA are advocates for small businesses. There are many small businesses that I met and gave contracts to because Shivani Dubey's team actually introduced me to those small businesses. So you want to get with your SBA, you will be assigned a business counselor who will help you and guide you and give you advice. And they are some of the most wonderful people to work with. So make use of the SBA. That's what they're there for. And there are various DoD agencies, Army Corps of Engineers, U.S. Army, which is slightly separate from Army Corps of Engineers, because Army Corps of Engineers, they specialize obviously in construction. But the U.S. Army itself also has acquisitions for, again, commodities, utilities, everything else that anybody would need that is not necessarily construction in nature. They buy furniture, they buy food services for the dining halls, everything, just like any city would need. The U.S. Army posts, they need them too. NAVFAC, that's the Navy's outfit for doing their contracting. Wonderful people. USAFE is United States Air Force, and DLA again is the Defense Logistics Agency. They do a lot of the POL, like petroleum, oil products, parts for aircraft, things like that. What you want to do is you want to go in and do your research for each of these various agencies. Find out what their requirements are. What are the things that they buy? What are the things that they do? Because it's all going to be tied to what their missions are. And if it's in alignment with what your company does, those are the folks that you want to get out there and market to. And again, there are other agencies outside of the DoD out there too. As you know, the federal government is vast, it's huge. And these are some of the other agencies, the GSA, General Services Administration, VA, Department of Veterans Affairs. They do their own contracting for construction and for maintenance of hospital facilities, all of that, get to know them. DHS, Department of Homeland Security, and then DOE is the Department of Energy. They do their own contracting. BLM, Bureau of Land Management, USDA, U.S. Department of Agriculture, all of those agencies, and there are many, many more that I did not put here. It's just to let you know that there's a lot out there that you can research, and you don't have to tie yourself to marketing just to one agency. I'm working for a construction company right now, DAP Construction Management. This construction company has done work for numerous agencies, not just DoD. So diversify your portfolio, get out there and see who's out there and market to all of them, okay? And again, like I said, there are forecasts of upcoming opportunities, trade shows, industry days. There are various means that the government will get out there and forecast their requirements, okay, to let you know what's coming, because they want you ready to compete. They want you aware of what's coming, what their requirements are going to be, so that you can get ready to compete for it. And The bigger the pool of qualified contractors, the better. The better contracts can be awarded, best use of taxpayers' money, all of that. And you want to or learn how to navigate beta.sam.gov. A lot of the bugs have been worked out of that new system now so that you can get in there and do all of your research and you're searching for opportunities coming up, okay? And tip for new contractors, I mean, I believe that this is probably basic information no matter what you're doing, no matter what your business is. Networking is vital in building relationships. That's how you get there, okay? Next slide, please. How do you get the government to purchase from you? Number one, do your homework. Just like you're doing anything else, you're planning, you're strategizing, and you do your research. Find out about upcoming opportunities. Take a look at what some of the advertising articles that may be out that the government puts out occasionally. Read all of that. Find out some of the issues, things that the government may be dealing with that you possibly may have an innovative solution to. The small business community is the backbone of our nation's our industrial base. I mean, small businesses, you are the ones who create the new jobs. You are the ones that come up with all the various new solutions and creative ways of doing things, new technology, new processes and procedures. That's why the small business community is so important, and that's why the government mandates that as much work goes to the small business community as possible. We've got to have you out there growing and contributing, and our nation basically depends on you. Most large businesses out there, when it comes to actually doing the work, they're the ones that get the huge contracts. But when it comes to having feet on the ground and actually getting the work done, they turn to the small businesses to get it done. They subcontract out the work to the small businesses. That's how vital all of you are. You want to find out who your competition is. Do that research. Sometimes you want to partner with your competition to bring more resources to the table. Teaming is the way that everything is going these days. So take a look at who your competition may be and some of the other contractors out there that you could possibly form a strategic alignment with so that you can go after some of those bigger contracts. And especially as a business owner, you want to know what makes you special, what makes you different, what unique thing do you bring to the table that the government may be interested in doing business with you. Again, learn the language, learn the terminology. You read everything, you review everything, and get to know the players, okay? Just like you're getting ready for anything else, you're going to get ready to work with the government, okay? Next slide, please. For successful marketing, we always recommend that you start at the local levels. Eventually, when you get large enough, you'll be able to go after those great big regional or nationwide contracts, but start at the local level. You want to meet your small business specialists, especially for DoD. Every installation has a small business specialist. And like I said before, those are the first people that you want to meet. Make your introductions to them. They can tell you what the best methods to market. They can help you meet the successful prime contractors, and they can help you with your subcontracting searches too. Oftentimes, the best way for a contractor to get their foot in the door with the federal government is to start as a subcontractor. It familiarizes you with the way the government does business, gets you familiar with the regulations and the standards. And as you're working as a subcontractor, you're gaining past performance and you're meeting other contractors with whom you can possibly form good teaming arrangements, okay? And one of the things that I've always noticed is that when companies know you, they know about you, they will endorse you. They will free word of mouth talking about other contractors that they know and giving you that free advertising to help you promote your business. Okay. Next slide, please. And always remember that you're not in this alone. Reach out to the SBA because they are one of the best assets that you have, resources that you have for information, guidance, assistance, and for introductions. SBA will introduce you to the agencies to whom you want to market. They can help you with promoting your business. You want to take advantage of your positive relationships with your fellow subcontractors. Everybody works together, grows together. Okay. And you want to make a good business practice in general is to have time to meet your customers and your partners and you build those relationships. Okay. And you want to garner relationships with local end users. Start at the local level, start winning those small dollar projects, and then you build up. You build up. Okay. Networking is what it's all about. And again, start small and work your way up. Every large business out there was a small business at one time. The Hensel Phelps in construction, McCartney, all of those companies, they started small, and you see where they are now. You have that potential as well. Start small, work your way up, and you could be the future Tutor Perini, who knows? Okay, lots of great contractors out there. Raytheon started small, they're huge now. Every contractor has that potential. Next slide, please. And you do need to be patient. A lot of contractors, especially after they've received their 8A certification, for instance, they think that they no longer have to market, that they no longer have to knock on doors, that the government's going to be beating down their doors to give them contracts. Not true. You still have to market, and you still have to promote your business. And it can take maybe a year, 2 years to get that first contract. The business development cycle could be a long one, could be 18 to 24 months sometimes of you getting to know people, making contacts, finding out about forecasted opportunities and getting yourself positioned to compete for that contract. It can take time, but those contractors that are successful in the federal sector, they will tell you it took them a while to get there, but when they finally got there, it was well worth it. There is more and more competition all the time, and winning is more challenging than ever. But if you do your homework, and you can get there. Every contractor, I always try to let them know that they can get there. The more that you bid, the more you will win. It's just like they say about the lottery. You can't win unless you play. You got to get in there. So that's what you need to do for all of those acquisitions that you see out there. Start bidding on those. The more that you bid, the more that you will win. And you learn from that. For those that you are unsuccessful on, you can learn from all of that. Again, start small. You get your valuable experience and the past performance assessments that you need, starting small and then growing your business. And again, to emphasize, becoming a subcontractor can help you get your foot in the door. At Luke Air Force Base, some of our most successful prime contractors started out as subcontractors. And as we got to know them and they became more experienced and they were ready to go after prime contracts themselves, they were successful. And most of those contractors, they believe in giving back to the community. They believe in helping other subcontractors coming up behind them to help them up too. And that's one of the great things is about, like, especially the construction industry, the construction community. Everybody believes in helping each other and helping each other grow. And I think it's wonderful. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, this is what are the things that you have to think about as a business owner? What is your plan? First, you identify obviously your scope of qualifications. What are your capabilities, your core capabilities of your company? You want to be able to articulate that. Reach out to the SBA if you're a small business and find out what certifications that you may be qualified for. They can help you with your application process to get those certifications. Certifications will help you open more doors out there in the federal sector because, as I said before, federal government mandated to support the small business program. Market research indicates that there's more competition in one category or another, so there's set-asides. And you want to be getting your certification so that you can get in that category and compete for all of the things that you're qualified to compete for. And not every contractor has the certification, so that helps limit the competition a little bit. Okay. SBA can help you with your capital needs, with loans, things like that. Okay. And of course, the SBA has the mentor protege program. For those contractors that have been very successful, they've grown. Oftentimes, they want to become mentors to other smaller companies to help those companies grow. And oftentimes, if it fits within your business strategy for helping your company grow, because everything is strategy, you plan. If it's in alignment with what you foresee for the growth of your company, you may want to seek a mentor and you be their protege that helps you grow. And one of the great things about the Mentor Protege program in the federal government is that you can work together with your mentor. They can provide resources to you. They can provide labor and additional, materials, things like that. They can help you in the performance of your contract without it counting against you. Okay, so there is advantage to having a mentor protege agreement, a formal agreement. But that's one of the things that you can think about as you're strategizing, and talk to your SBA counselor if mentor protege is something that you might want to consider, if it would work for you. SBA can also advise you about teaming arrangements. If you're going after a particular contract, it's something that's maybe too big. Maybe there's some capabilities that it calls for that your company doesn't have. You may want to form a team with somebody else. You bring more to the table, help each other gain those contracts. Same thing with the joint venture. You and another company may decide that you may want to pool your resources and create that third entity called a joint venture and go after something. Or you could decide you want to go it alone. It's all business strategizing, planning, and those are the things that you want to think about, especially when you're going into the federal sector. You don't want to just jump in head first. You want to do your planning and you want to strategize and do your research. Okay. And there are resources out there to help you with that. Next slide, please. So after you've figured out what your plan is going to be, who do you talk to? Again, first one you want to talk to is your small business professional, small business specialist who is out there to make contact with contractors, and they can advise you on the coming forecasted requirements. They can advise you what's the best way to market your company to the agency to whom they belong. They are a great source of information and guidance. And again, the contracting officer, small business professional, will introduce you and make connections for you with the contracting officers. Often program managers, especially when it comes to large systems level contracts. Installation contracts are those that are awarded at the individual installation that maintains infrastructure and the needs of the installation. However, for the larger, what we refer to as systems level contracts, major weapon systems, things like that, the multi-billion-dollar contracts, usually those contracts are in support of a major program that the government is doing research in, things like that. Okay, and you want to do your research. If, for instance, as an example, maybe you're an IT company cybersecurity, or maybe developing a new software. Getting to know the program manager for a particular requirement of the government for which you may be doing research. Perhaps you found a new technology or methodology that you might want to market to the program manager. That may be the person that you want to get to know. And again, first foot in the door is with small business professional. You let them know that you need to get to know the program manager so that you could possibly pitch your ideas and your company's capabilities to the program manager. Now, the program manager is not the one that's going to award the contract. They can't promise you a contract. But if they know that you're out there and that you might be able to provide some of the resources and some of the solutions to what they're working on, they will tell the small business professional and the contracting officer. They are the ones that come up with the requirements. They identify the requirements that the contracting personnel will then put on contract. They all work together. And if the program manager knows about you and what you do and your company does, if it's truly unique and something that they need, they can talk to the contracting folks and bring you in for capabilities presentation, and possibly go to the FAR and look up unsolicited proposals, because often the government will accept what they refer to as unsolicited proposals. Proposals that they weren't necessarily asking for, but you've got an idea that you want to share with the government. You put together an unsolicited proposal and get them to consider it, and you might actually have a contract awarded to you for special research or something else. Okay, so there's always a way to get your foot in the door and to get folks to find out about your company and to do business with the government. Okay. But you always start with that small business professional. The small business professional is your biggest advocate and your biggest ally for getting your foot in the door. Okay. The next slide, please. And once you start making those connections, what do you provide them? First thing that you always want to have is a capability statement. Capability statement can be 1 or 2 pages, but that's where you're doing an outline, a summarization of the core capabilities of your company, what your company does, the NAICS codes, perhaps highlighting some of your best projects, listing the clients with whom you've already worked, that sort of thing. But you want to have a capability statement that you can always hand out to somebody. That's part of your marketing. It's one of your marketing tools. Brochures the same way. And your business card is very valuable. And I always tell contractors, when I used to receive business cards, most of whom I actually keep the business cards because I never know if I'm going to be needing them in the future. But business cards are often the very first impression that you give a potential client. And you want to make sure that you have information on the front and the back of your business card. You're paying for the card, make sure the business card has information on the back too. Make use of every space that you've got on your business card. And one of the best snapshots of your business is the business card that has not only the name of your company, but you also have your NAICS codes, whatever certifications that your company has, all kinds of great information like that. Okay, utilize that business card. And in today's age, everything being digital, everything, everything is computerized. You want to make sure that you have a great website. If you are having problems with developing your own website, there are professionals out there that can help you put something great together. Every company now, you receive a business card. As soon as you get back to your office, you're on the computer looking at the website of that company to see more detailed information about the services and the projects, the people who work for that the company, what the company culture and what their mission and their vision is. So make sure that you have a great website out there too. Okay. And those are all the things that you want to include in your website. and your brochure and your capability statement. Marketing is everything. And oftentimes when you're at a conference and or a trade show, you don't have an opportunity to sit down with somebody one-on-one. Make sure that you have a brochure or a capability statement or something that you can hand that person that they can take back with them that tells about your company. That's how you're going to generate interest, and that's how they'll remember you and contact you later. At Luke Air Force Base, that's one of the things that we always did. That was part of our market research, was going through all of the capability statements that we had and all of the business cards as well. We included that in our market research to find out who is out there, who is qualified to compete for our acquisitions. Okay. Oh, next slide, please. This is a very important slide for especially those of you who are very, very new to the federal sector. Avoid costly mistakes. Don't pay for resources that you can get for free. Getting a DUNS number, registering in SAM, obtaining a GSA contract, getting a cage code, all of those things are free. If you need assistance on how to do all of that, registering in SAM, for instance, or whatever, there are agencies out there that were created specifically to be there to help you, and their services are free. PTAC, the Procurement Technical Assistance Center, for example. The Arizona PTAC is located at the Glendale Community College. The PTAC office, Mr. Danny Ayala, he is the director of the program. He has business counselors who will be assigned to you to help you with everything that you need to do to get your foot in the door, to go after the government work. Do not pay for all of that. All of that is available to you for free, okay? One of the worst things, especially for new contractors, especially when they can't afford it, is to hire the wrong consultants. There are folks out there who have experience, who will offer you the moon as long as you pay extraordinary sums of money. Don't do it, okay? You don't have to do it. There's resources out there to help you for free. And you as a business owner, don't skip the important steps of doing your market research, identifying the targets, the folks that you want to market to, educate yourself, leverage your free resources again, and plan and strategize. You plan everything, okay? And of course, I'm just giving you very, very basic information. You guys all know that. Business owners are some of the most ingenious people. I've always admired entrepreneurs because it takes a special person to be an entrepreneur. You folks are the ones who are, you are the ones who have the fortitude and the determination to take the risks. You're creative, you're determined, hard workers, and you have the imagination to start your companies. And it takes something special to be an entrepreneur. And as an entrepreneur, these are the things that you do all the time anyway. You do your research, you plan and you strategize, and you go forward and make your dreams happen. So entrepreneurs you folks are amazing. As a former government worker, I always admired entrepreneurs. And I did not have the fortitude myself to be a business owner. So all of you, you have my highest respect, all of you. And I believe that we are coming to the last slide now. This has been a long workshop. I hope I haven't bored you all to death with this basic information. But anyway, it's a summary, how to prepare for federal contracts. You become familiar with the SBA. You determine whether or not you're qualified for one of those certification programs. You talk to the SBA about that. They will help you determine your qualifications and help you get your applications ready. You get your DUNS number and you get your cage code. You register in SAM. You identify your product and your service. And you go out there and research what the federal procurement opportunities are. beta.sam.gov is your best place for doing that. Get yourself familiar with the government's contracting procedures. Look at the FAR, Federal Acquisition Regulation. It will educate you to let you know how the government is supposed to be doing their business. And as I mentioned before, there's numerous agencies that are out there that exist to help you. Small Business Development Centers, the Procurement Technical Assistance Centers, the PTACs, and also the Minority Business Development Agencies. all of these people are extremely dedicated. They care about their clients. Utilize them because that's what they're there for. They're there to help you, okay? And at each federal buying office, at each agency to whom you want to market, you contact those small business specialists because they're out there to help you and to guide you also on how to market to their agencies. Explore subcontract opportunities, investigate all the federal programs out there, and then market, 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 okay? And good luck to all of you. God bless you all. And that ends this particular session. So for all of you who may still be awake and still listening, thank you very much for your time. Are there any questions right now that you need me to answer?
Hey, Sam, thank you so much again for this wonderful presentation. I learned a lot as well. I don't see any questions, and I know we're
Okay.
a little over in time, but we'll share your contact information in our post-event email later this afternoon with everyone. Oh, I do see one here.
Oh, okay.
And this is from Dean. He's saying, how do we find the small business specialist for the various agencies?
If you go out on the internet, there will be listings of small business specialists. Also, if you go to the SBA or the PTAC office, they will have a listing, a directory of small business specialists.
Great. And
I can give them a start, okay? Small business specialist at Luke Air Force Base. Her name is Mary Peetz, P-E-E-T-Z. Her telephone number is 623-856-7121. She is the business specialist for Luke Air Force Base, the 56th Fighter Wing. And she has a directory of all of the other small business specialists throughout the country. She can also help you find who you need to find, the various installations or the other agencies that you may want to get in contact with.
awesome. Really quick here, what is the quality as an 8A?
Well, the 8A program is based on economic criteria. And all of the criteria is outlined in FAR Part 19. And also the SBA is there to help a contractor go through all of their paperwork, look at their financials, everything, to help them determine whether or not they're qualified to be an 8A.
Awesome. And one last question here, and then we'll get started with our member orientation.
And then at that point, I would jump off.
Are the agencies open right now for in-person consultations, or are they doing things online?
A lot of the businesses or the agencies right now are working from home because of COVID. That they are all available. You can reach them by internet or by telephone.
Awesome.
And if you go on on Google, you can Google their contact information.
Wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you so much, Sam. It was nice to hear from you, your area of expertise in federal contracting. Like I mentioned, we'll be sharing her contact info and more information in our post-event email. So be on the lookout for that. As well as our next session will be on Tuesday, April 20th. So please mark your calendars, visit our website, and make sure to register for these 8 wonderful workshops provided through our MBDA Business Center and brought to you by APS. With that, I'd like to officially conclude our presentation for today. And we'll go ahead and get started with our membership orientation. I know there's some folks already here waiting to begin.
Okay, thank you. Bye-bye now.
Thank you, Sam.